Gale Banks. Gale Banks.
Gale Banks.
Gale Banks. Gale Banks.
To call Gale Banks an engineer would be an understatement.
This is Speed School with Gale Banks.
School has begun.
Get it on, get it on, get it on. We've got KJ Jones in the studio today. KJ is an old friend, and he is currently senior content producer, Motor Trend Truck and Off-Road Group. Well, what happened to Truck Trend?
Truck Trend is still there, Gale. The title that I have, I will admit, is self-developed.
Yeah.
I don't know if our people and culture department is aware of my title as this. It might be called something else. I think maybe it's like a part number. When Diesel Power, which I was the editor-in-chief of Diesel Power,
Yes.
as you know, when that went away and we went into a digital space, content is the buzz term for what we're doing now versus articles and that type of thing. So
Yeah.
I thought about it, and based on my years in the game, et cetera, I'm a senior person, so I'm a senior content producer. And
So content is more of a video term, isn't it? A TV term? No? A web term? I don't know.
Well, a web term.
Yeah.
So web term is text, photos, video, it's kind of
Right.
all inclusive. And with what I'm doing now, I am doing a lot of all of that. There's some video involved. Of course, there are the words and photos and stuff. So I just thought it was appropriate. It works, and nobody's yelled at me for it yet. So
Well, you're the head man, though, it looks like, a senior.
yeah, that's just based on time in the game.
Yeah.
I think about it coming close to 20 years, Gale.
Wow.
Yeah.
A little backstory, talking about Diesel Power.
Yes, sir.
Years ago, there was no diesel magazine at all, anywhere. And this guy I met, wrote a lot of automotive stuff, a number of books, went under the nom de plume Bob Warr.
Bob Warr.
And John Thawley was his name. Thawley approaches me and he says, "Want to do a diesel magazine?" Of course, we had no internet or any of that going on back then. And he says, "I want to dummy up a copy. You write some stuff, I'll write some stuff. We'll take pictures of engines you're doing out in the back, and we'll go to John Diana with it." John Diana had been the editor of Hot Rod Magazine, the publisher of Hot Rod Magazine, and probably at one time the editor as well. He was in the hierarchy of Peterson Publishing at the time. He had moved from Peterson, started his own publishing company. And so we did this deal, me and Thawley, who I done a lot with in my Buick days, the Buick Grand National days in the 80s. He was hired by Herb Fischel, who was the performance guy at Buick at the time, to do a lot of copy about Buick and their performance cars. So we dummied it up. He went to John Diana, and Diana said, "Nobody will ever buy this." The name of it was Diesel Power.
Really?
That was the name on the
Wow.
cover. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah. I know you as a gearhead.
Absolutely.
A guy who wrenches, a guy who races.
Yes, sir.
All of that stuff. And going back to when you were a kid, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New York, believe it or not.
Really?
And,
Whereabouts?
White Plains, New York, which is Westchester County.
Yep.
It's just above the city.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
And grew up a car, truck, vehicle, motorcycle, go-kart guy. The way I say it, and it's actually true, I've been into it since I was able to say the three-letter word. As soon as I was able to say car,
You've been into
it's just
it.
my thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom has a
He
great...
was probably about 8 months old at that point.
My mom has a great memory, a remembrance of me being a toddler or a little kid, and she said I used to sleep with like a death grip on my Hot Wheels cars.
Yeah.
I used to sleep with Hot Wheels in both hands because I just love
Well, it hasn't left you, that's for damn sure.
No, not at all. I don't think it's going to go anywhere at this point. I've been immersed in it for a long time. So the journey has been it's been good.
So high school also
Yes,
White
sir.
Plains?
Yes, high school in actually Tarrytown, New York, which is right outside.
Yeah.
It's all in the Westchester County area. So
Yeah.
I'm a local guy that, I guess you could say made out pretty well.
So, and college?
College is University of Pittsburgh. Hail to Pitt. All damn day.
Bachelor's degree in?
In communications. Bachelor's degree in communications, and that's where things kind of, I guess you could say, get weird because when I was in high school and even elementary school, what I wanted to do was work with cars.
Yeah.
And being in the garage and taking shop programs, etc. I developed good hands, I guess you could say, with putting parts on or even graduating to building engines and such.
Yes.
That was fine. That was all well and good. And when it came time to think about what your career is going to be, I thought it would be really cool to be a mechanical engineer with a specialty in engine design. That's what I wanted to do. I thought that I would design the next big Corvette engine or some type of high-performance power plant that would have my name on it. So I was pursuing engineering, mechanical engineering, and I actually applied to the GM Institute of Technology and several other engineering programs, but I got rejected at every single one. Just couldn't get in.
They didn't want a communications guy, apparently.
I guess, and I didn't know I was one at the time. I was thinking engineer, but I did go to Pitt for a visit and met with an admissions guy. And the admissions gentleman said, KJ, you're not getting into engineering schools because your math sucks. So here I have brilliant hands.
Yeah.
But looking back, I admit it. I own every bit of it. I didn't apply myself in the math classes, and didn't think about or know that that's what's required to be an engineer. Got it. So in that moment, the admissions officer said, well, look, we can let you in the Pitt in the general studies program and get your math strong enough and you can go to engineering school after that.
Yeah.
I did some math.
Yeah.
And said, that's too much school.
I get it.
That's too many years of school. So communications became the fallback, and it's not in a negative, but that's what I decided to pursue because I liked the radio and thought that, you know what, maybe I can do this communication stuff and eventually get into radio. So that's how that came about.
So did you have, when I was in high school, they called it radio speech.
Radio speech as far as classes, a curriculum?
Yeah. I had 4 years of radio speech.
Wow. Believe it or not, I at Pitt, I just had communications courses across the board, your nonverbal, interpersonal, etc.
Got it.
To learn the science of communication. But as far as training, the only training was available through the student activity, the radio station. So I just became a member of the radio station and worked my way through that, learned about internships.
Yes.
So in summers, I was working at professional radio stations doing internships, and every time I would go back to school after a summer, after having an internship at a pro station, I would just move up the ladder as far as stature in the station. So by my senior year, I was the station manager. At Pitt. I was the station manager of the FM. That's what I thought my path was going to be. And I did get into broadcast after I graduated with CBS Radio Network. So I worked in New York, in the city, for CBS. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many years you do that?
A collective 7 years at CBS. I was on the radio side initially and then moved into what was kind of a swing position between radio and TV. So I worked in the TV studio. It was kind of like the spy for radio because things would be coming in for TV for the Rather Show, Dan Rather actually, for the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather and any other broadcasts that we were doing. But the studios were separated across the broadcast center. So I was the mole inside Studio 47 that would have to get elements for radio or have a correspondent file a spot for radio because they were doing their TV stuff and all of that.
So were you doing a news format or a documentary format?
No, it was news. It was 24/7 as news happens, as the world happens.
You must have been the automotive specialist.
Well, I was the automotive specialist sitting there, not really doing any type of automotive things.
I'm with you. Yeah.
I was watching the world happen, and it was very fascinating because again, I didn't really set out to do any of this. This was just something that I thought was going to be a stepping stone to, who knows what at that point. But
were you hot rodding, racing, doing anything?
Absolutely. Whenever I was off, my activity was the cars and building them and tinkering with them and
so
going.
Tell me about a car you might have been building in those years.
In those years, believe it or not, I had a pretty sedate car. My first dealer brand new car was a Pontiac Grand Am. However, we hopped that Grand up. We took an HO engine from the Chevy, the Cavalier, and put that in my Grand Am. So we were kind of at it for a long time. I mean, back in high school. But that engine swap, put an HO engine in my Grand Am, and then I actually had a Honda that I kind of left pretty stock, but I got into the late model Mustangs, basically. And when the Fox Mustang.
That's a cool place to be.
Absolutely.
Fox body?
Fox, of course.
Yeah.
When the Fox came about, I jumped in, completely all in, and that's where things really started to escalate as far as me doing what I do today and career in media with automotive media.
So did you ever work in the automotive service industry?
Yes. From New York, 1997, I moved out here to California, Southern California, and what I wanted to do is transition into the automotive space professionally. I've been doing it as a hobby, racing and building cars and messing with cars, but I wanted to make it my job. Looking back at wanting to be a mechanical engineer and kind of giving up on that or not pursuing that, but knowing now that I have this communications base, there's some way I can tie communications into automotive.
Yeah.
But when I moved out here, the thing was I showed no automotive on my resume. So to get automotive on my resume, I needed a job. And this is back in the day of newspapers when the Sunday paper was this thick. Yeah. And you had this big classified section and you just go through it. I would look at all the automotive jobs, and most of them were dealership. And one came about at Galpin. You're familiar with Galpin, of course.
Very familiar with Galpin.
Galpin on the Lincoln Mercury side needed a service advisor in the service department. And I said, well, you know what? Let me give this a shot. And what I did was I drove into the shop with my Mustang, and my Mustang came banging into the service drive, and every technician in the garage came out.
This was
to see what was going on.
Yeah, it was a serious Mustang, obviously.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
By way of luck, that service department, including the service manager, everybody there was a gearhead. Everybody in the shop was a gearhead. So they came out and checked out my Mustang and met with the service manager, and he looked over the resume I had put together, and he kind of was like, well, you're kind of above this gig, you know what I mean? But I said, listen, this is what I want to do. I need to do this. And, I'm a communicator, good presence with a customer, learning the product is easy.
Absolutely.
And all that kind of thing. Yeah. So I got the job and did pretty well, quickly. And that was my base as far as working in the automotive space.
It also anchored you in California.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's lots of good Ford dealers in L.A., but Galpin is exceptional.
Yeah. At the time, too, you're talking about 97, 98.
Right.
When things were really, really swinging for that group and leading in. At the time on the Lincoln Mercury side, leading Navigator sales, they led sales in just about every category, especially Ford trucks, trucks. So it was a good space to be in. So
you have a big movie crowd, entertainment industry.
Yes.
A lot of guys in the magazine business out that way.
Yeah, actually, two guys in the magazine business that I eventually ended up working with came through once with warranty concern on a Mustang. Now, imagine that, magazine guys with a warranty concern on a Mustang. And I had to let them know that there's no such thing as a warranty concern for you guys.
You have no concerns.
You have no warranty concern. Yeah. I wish I could help you, but that's how I got to meet some of the people that would eventually become colleagues. They came into the drive trying to get cars worked on and stuff, and that was a fun a fun deal. You would have people that would try to get around corners the best way they could, and I'm sure that it might still happen, but there was once a kid, he came in and he had a box of parts, hard parts, rods and such, and he says, yeah, it happened on the freeway. So I'm like, well, you went back on the freeway and picked up all the parts? like,
yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, they were fun. They were fun times, but looking back, wouldn't trade it for anything, because it really was, for me to move from New York to California, not having a job, wanting to get into a certain avenue, career-wise. Without that, I don't know how things would have went.
So who's the owner of Galpin?
I believe it's still a Bachman property. I don't think they're giving that up to anybody.
Yeah.
I think at this point.
Was Bo Bachman involved?
Bo, during
at that time,
Bo was, if it gets me in trouble, it gets me in trouble. Bo was like the rich kid that had everything in the world automotive and just would come in the shop and be a nuisance. That's who
Bo was much younger then.
Yes, he was. He was.
We're not talking about yesterday.
No.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. And looking back, I guess it was kind of funny, but he would come in, he would have his dad, or if he had allowance money or whatever, buy these cars that were cool, but they'd always have an issue. And he'd bring him into the shop, and of course it's the boss's son, so this has to be fixed. And it's like,
absolutely.
You're
take care of
you're
them.
messing up our structure and our flow, because you have paying customers as well that want their cars fixed too. So, we need to prioritize or come to a happy medium about how this is going to go.
It's like Bo found his traction.
Yeah.
And now they've got a high performance. He runs the high performance side of things, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And when I was there, that was one of the sells to me for going aboard. There was that vision was there back in the late 90s.
Yeah.
It didn't come about
Galpin Autosport.
Correct.
Yeah.
It didn't come about till much later, but that vision was there in the late 90s, and there was thought, that this is what's going to happen. So it's cool if you get in now, because you can work here, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have all kind of hot roddy fun and stuff like that. So
yeah, you guys listen to this. Google Galpin Autosport, and Bo had a TV show for a while. Does he still?
I've seen him here and there. It was Pimp My Ride was one of them that he was involved with, but he also had something, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that I don't recall the name of, but it was another build type of show on cable, but I don't know if that's still going.
Yeah, we did a segment with him.
Yes.
On that wide fender De Tomaso that Shelby did when he was with Chrysler.
Yeah.
Looking for a direction for a very high performance sports car, something to compete with the Cobra. Mm-hmm. If you study Shelby's career at Ford, you'll find that he was not too elegantly dismissed by Ford. Just one day they shut down his car operation, and that was it. And Lee Iacocca, kind of the father of the Mustang, went to Chrysler, and then he reeled in Shelby, who had been doing safaris in Africa. He went into the safari business. Cattle down in Africa, imported them to Texas, all kinds of jive like that. The name of the show is Driven, that he did, 8 segments, something like that. Pretty cool show. It has to turn a buck, apparently, and maybe it didn't. Maybe it was too gearhead and too inside. But we did the engine for Shelby's prototype. Did Shelby call it a Pantera? Because once we did a twin-turbo A-block Mopar engine for it.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow, Bo found the car, found the engine, and we all worked together to find the parts. One turbo was missing, all that kind of jive.
Right, to get it done.
It's on Driven, which you can still find on the Discovery app. So there's a little Mustang right there talking about Iacocca. They ultimately did the Viper. Mm-hmm. And this was the first hit at a Viper prototype.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it was pretty badass. I'll say that. You're at the dealership, and you're meeting magazine guys.
Yeah.
Who you would later. Take me a little further.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm at the dealership and I'm meeting local magazine guys. Now I have to double back a little bit because before I left New York, drag racing at Raceway Park, Englishtown, and knowing people in the scene, and the scene was just developing. The late model Mustang scene, or the Fox Mustang scene to be specific, was just developing, and you had magazines like Muscle Mustangs and Fast Fords. And then a couple of years later, 5.0 Mustang and Super Fords. I was fortunate enough to meet personnel that worked on those magazines, which was really
racing in New York.
Yeah,
cool.
Racing in New York.
Yeah,
I was really lucky enough to meet actually the late Steve Collison, who was the editor of Drag Racing Illustrated, and he was working with what became Muscle Mustangs and Fast Fords. He had a project car called Mean Mr. Mustang. And Mean Mr. Mustang was basically a Fox Mustang with bolt-ons that over time and in following the magazine, you saw it get progressively quicker based on things that he was doing. And Mean Mr. Mustang, before I started following it, my Mustang was pretty much the same car.
Yeah.
I had been doing some of the same things that he was doing in the magazine.
Yeah.
And we met at Raceway Park one evening, kind of looking at each other's Mustang like, yeah. And we became friends. And then Evan Smith, who was a longtime editor of Muscle Mustang and Fast Fords, he was working at Raceway Park. He was actually, at the time, he was in the burnout box. He was spraying water in the burnout box. He was announcing sometimes. He was doing a lot of things at the track. And we became, good associates and such. So when I moved out here, I had known people in Mustang publishing. Mark Houlihan down in Florida. I had met him through the crude internet and a service called Prodigy. And Prodigy was a series of message boards that you would post messages on and then wait a month and then finally get a reply and that kind of thing. But I met Mark and I had started building a network. So when I moved out to LA, I had that going on. I worked at the dealership. And eventually I moved on to a company called Edmunds.com. I got out of dealership life and said, let me try to further apply communications into the automotive space, and got with Edmunds.com in its fledgling years.
It's still with us, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's grown tremendously. But I started working there in the data department as a Ford specialist. So Ford data was how I got in. And in that window, Evan Smith, who was then tech editor with Muscle Mustangs and Fast Fords, he contacted me and he said, KJ, I have a project. I have a car and parts, and it was an exhaust system, a car and parts in California, and I can't get out there to put them on. Can you put them on, put the car on the dyno, a pre and post dyno test, and then write an article? So I said, well, I think I can. And me and my wife, Crystal, we found a Sony Mavic, digital camera, an OG. That's an OG now. It took 5 minutes for that digital image to process. But we found my wife traded for it. She did some work for somebody and traded for the Sony Mavic, digital camera. I took that camera to the shop. We put the car in the dyno, got a baseline, put the parts on, dynoed after, and I just set about putting together an article. And I submitted everything.
Did you pick up some horsepower?
It did. It worked.
Yeah.
It worked a little bit. But I submitted everything, and this is before the internet as we know it. So I was putting everything in a FedEx package and sending it back to New Jersey. And Jim Camposano and Evan, I guess, went through it and did whatever necessary editing.
Yep.
And I got a check. It's like, wow, okay.
Shazam.
Yeah.
You're a journalist.
This is pretty cool. I was like, well, okay, you get paid for this.
Yeah.
Right on. And I got paid for it. And that led to, it was good enough for more freelance work. So I had a day job at Edmunds, but whenever they needed somebody, I would just do West Coast stuff for the magazine, for the Mustang magazine. And from there. That was a couple of years of doing that freelance. But when I left Edmunds, I had built up at this point now, and the Mustang scene is growing, and the internet is getting more progressive, so communication is a lot easier and that type of thing. And on my own, I was traveling to events like the PRI show, you know, as KJ Jones Racing, my own entity. So I'd go to PRI and just basically what's considered now building your brand. I was doing that back in the late 90s, you know, just establishing myself and building my brand and working with Mustangs and stuff. So what happened was I left Edmunds.com and I put out an email blast. Now emails and stuff, I had a good Rolodex of people, and I just sent it to everybody I know saying I was available for freelance work, everybody in the publishing space. And Steve Turner contacted me right away by email and said, look, let's talk. And he let me know that Mark Houlihan had moved on to become the editor of his own magazine, Mustangs and Fords Illustrated, and he needed a tech editor for 5.0 Mustangs.
For 5.0? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, you know, he thought based on what he had seen me write as far as responses to questions online, seeing me at these events at World Ford Challenge and various race events and stuff, he thought that I was the guy for the job. He wanted someone in California, and it worked out.
A good tech editor is very hard to find.
Well,
very hard.
I agree, not having been one, because as just a magazine reader, I know how frustrating it can be to read something by someone who doesn't particularly have a grasp of what they're trying to talk about. So
that's exactly the case.
It is hard to find, and thankfully now tying all this stuff back to communications, you know, I did, as opposed to not focusing in math, I focused enough on how to communicate.
Yes.
I focused enough on how to, you know, really transmit messages and information to pretty much any type of audience. And instead of doing it on radio through a microphone, is just doing it through words and the keyboard. So, you know, if you know the subject and being a communicator, you should be able to do it. And that's how it's all played out.
So you're now at 5.0 Mustang and Super Fords magazine as the tech editor.
Yes, as a tech editor, and that was just whoever. There was this kid in the candy store job, ultimate dream job, because I'm working with the car platform that I really love. You know, at the time.
And I assume you're working on your own Mustang.
Oh,
at home
absolutely.
or wherever.
Yeah. I mean, project car. I had read about so many different project cars.
Yes.
And seen them come together through the magazine, and like, man, that's the ultimate. And then I had the opportunity to build a project car that became, I mean, it's my car, so it's one of those deals where it's hard to talk about, but for all intents and purposes, like really a badass. And now it's like kind of iconic, which is weird to me. But I built that car, you know, and I got to work with people in the industry and build their trust, and you know, show that I could prove that I could you know, deliver based on their support and whatever I did, not just a project car, but if it's just doing some type of a tech project with their product, you know, KJ's going to get it right. He's going to put the parts on. He's going to tell it like it is, you know, good or bad. And
well, that's a biggie right there.
Absolutely.
What you just said is a biggie.
Keep the industry moving.
It's like Car and Driver they told the truth.
Yes, sir.
When I first started working with those guys, it's in the 80s. I was working with Pontiac at the time, and somehow they had pissed off the marketing guy at Pontiac. I watched him melt down. They're never going to have anything in Car and Driver forever. You know, Pontiac is done. Well, he was blowing hard.
Right.
How did you do this? I mean, you said whether it's good or it's bad, you told the truth.
Absolutely. Well, you recall several years ago, believe it or not, I've been doing this segment of my job in truck for 8 years now. But when I started in truck, keep it 100, right? You remember that? Keep it 100 is, I've lived by that. That's been instilled.
We both
in me.
have.
Absolutely. So in doing that, and again, you know, even yourself as a manufacturer and company owner, you know, you want good things to be said about your stuff. And if the stuff, in a sense, can speak for itself and is good, that's one thing. But in those instances where there might be a problem, you still have to let it be known that there was a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some diplomacy in it, yes, certainly. But ultimately, you have to let it out as to what's going on. So
Yes.
I guess finding, you know, a safe enough medium to do that is what I've been able to do for a long time now, so nobody yells at me.
You know, if you misrepresent and readers don't get the same results,
Oh, that's problems.
then it's on you, not
Absolutely.
the manufacturer.
And you think about it, and this is something that goes back to my upbringing, you know, it's your name. You know, your name and your credibility.
Absolutely.
And as soon as that's messed up, that's
You
a
got
hard
nothing.
fight to get it back.
Yeah.
It's pretty much impossible the way I say it, so I just don't try to mess it up.
We're in a world where, you know, if I'm coming out with a new product or a new application of an existing product, I always buy any competitive stuff that's out there and see if their claims in their ads are actual. And I'm disappointed quite a bit. I just brought in a new guy a few months ago who worked at a competitive place, and they had a dyno, and everything in their advertising, everything had a power number. All the time he was there, the dyno never ran.
Did they have a power number?
Well, the marketing guy pulled it out of his ear.
Sure.
You know, so when you test a competitive product, you find out real quick the authenticity of the claims. The other side of it is somebody's going to dyno me.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to dyno your results. You know,
Yeah.
you want to make sure the dyno numbers are actual.
Plus or minus 2.
Yeah,
That's about all you get.
Yeah, you got this little window of authenticity. I want to hear more about that first Project Mustang that you did as a journalist.
My first Project Mustang, which
The one that became iconic.
the iconic. It's on a T-shirt, Gale.
So that's iconic.
It's on a T-shirt.
All
But
right.
Anyway, it's my 1986 Mustang LX. It's a trunk model, which the coupe is one of the more popular Fox Mustangs.
Yes.
But it's very unique in that it's a T-top car. As Fox Mustangs go, there were more T-top hatchback models produced.
Yes.
And a T-top coupe is kind of a holy grail Mustang.
It's a rare bird. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I would
Rare
discuss
horse.
a rare horse.
Yeah.
When I would discuss it, it was met with a lot of those don't exist. There's no such thing. It's really
I've never seen one.
exact. That's I've heard people say that a
Yeah.
lot, and people hadn't seen one, etc. So I found it or saw a post on a website called hardcore50.com. Actually, it's my friend Jason Reese's website. I saw it on in the classified section, and I couldn't believe it. I said, "There's no way, you know, a T-top coupe." And this guy, he was out towards Indio, Poway. Oh gosh, Sultan. What's the name of that?
Salton Sea.
Salton Sea.
Yeah.
Out that way. It was out that way, and I typed him a message. I said, "Look, don't sell that car. I have to come see it. I pretty much want it, etc."
Yeah.
And got a trailer, drove all the way out there, and sure enough, it was a black, which is kind of like one of the popular colors and stuff. It was a black T-top coupe 505 speed, original 505 speed car.
Yeah.
When I did my research, yes, there were T-top coupes. There were not a lot made, but some of them were 6-cylinder. They weren't a lot of 5.0 cars. So this was a 505
It gets
speed
rarer
car.
and rarer.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Crank windows and all that kind of good stuff. So I said, man, I gotta have it. And because of who I was with 5.0 Mustang and Super Fords, ultimately the guy gave me the car. So it just cost me the fuel to get out there and back.
Literally.
He said, go and do something with it.
Oh,
so
me
I
too.
got it, but
Was it running?
no, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It was no drivetrain in it. There was no engine or transmission. So when I brought it to the driveway and perched it, Crystal, of course,
Yeah,
looked at it like, what's
What
going
the
on
hell?
here? What's
What
happening?
are you doing?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I had like so many enthusiasts, I had a vision, and what I wanted to do was really build something that for all the guys and ladies and all the enthusiasts that were me long before I got into the game that really appreciated and revered and wanted to build something. I said, let me do it in a sense for them. Like everybody's on my back.
Is this still late 90s?
No. At this point, I didn't get into 5.0. We're at 2005. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
We're at 2005, but I wanted to build something that everybody could appreciate.
Yes.
The bottom line, and because the car was so special as far as being rare, I wanted to make sure that I didn't. There was going to be some sacrilege as far as the quote unquote cutting it up, but there wasn't going to be too much to the point where it would lose its identity.
Yes.
So Hot Rods Drag Week was coming into play, and I said, you know what, let's build it to be a car that you could take on Drag Week.
Yes.
So have the interior in it, but be fast enough and safe enough, roll cage, etc., to go on Drag Week with it. And I pitched that as my first project to some big players in the aftermarket space. So one side of it is, who's this new guy that is asking us for thousands of dollars worth of parts, you know? But thankfully those companies had confidence in me. And as far as what I do is, the game is you work with pieces and you talk about them, and you present them in the magazine. That's the job. And I did that and kept them updated on the build and then actually the usage of the car, and took it to shows, etc. It just ended up seriously being just a car that, because it was unique and because it came out like really good. And I promise you, that's like awkward to say still to this day, but it came out like really, really good. And I can go to something where someone, something today where an enthusiast that followed 5.0, they'll still say, I follow that car. Do you still have that car? That type of thing. But the big blow away was my best friend came to the house one day, and he's wearing a T-shirt, and it's a T-shirt of Fox Mustangs, like a collage on it.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, someone got an image of my car, and it's on a T-shirt.
Yes.
And Summit sells it, so I kind of think, like, I should get something on that. Nobody asked me to sign anything for the likeness. I feel like a college ball player with the NIL and everything.
A little aside, the start of SEMA, there were two reasons. One of them had to do with money and being ripped off by customers who would go to, say, Iski and open an account, buy camshafts, this and that, and never pay for them. And Iski would cut them off. They'd go to Engel, do the same thing. None of the guys back in the day out here conversed with each other that much. Watch out for this guy.
Right.
So that was one reason to get together, so they could compare notes. This bad debt thing, nobody was that big back then. The other one had to do with what you just said. Guys doing little model cars put their logos on them without permission. And they felt at the time, hey, that's my trademark. Some guys would be flattered by it. Some guys wanted a fee. So that was another reason for starting. If you want the early SEMA opinion, you should be getting a little baksheesh here or something.
Yes, indeed. But that's true.
Nobody asked.
Nobody asked. Yeah. And in the big picture, it's all good. It's very flattering. It's extremely flattering.
Well, that's the other side of it.
But
right there.
It's just, I guess, weird to me. Weird in a cool way. But another one of my friends has said, you've had, as the hobby goes, probably one of the top 10 Mustangs in the space. And it's like, for me to have that,
yes,
that's just bizarre.
Do you still have the car?
It's in the garage.
Yeah, amen.
It's in the garage. Yeah.
Those are, I wish, I've built so many and sold them to build the next one.
Yeah, well, there's been plenty that got away.
And I didn't have good pictures.
Right.
Right. Polaroid pictures. For God's sakes.
Yeah, it's still there. I told Crystal, I says, listen, whenever whenever it happens, just find somebody with like a backhoe, because that's how big the hole's going to have to be.
Well, just put me in the Mustang.
Yep, that's how big the hole.
I'm driving to heaven. I'm powering.
Make the hole big enough to fit the whole works. Man.
Yeah, you got it. So you're doing this senior technical editor gig. Mm-hmm. We're about 05, etc. How many years before you went to Diesel Power?
To Diesel Power. Senior tech.
That was the next step, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
5.0 as tech editor, and then senior tech until they shut the doors. And they shut the doors in 2014. The magazine was discontinued.
Who was the publisher?
At that time,
it wasn't Peterson.
No.
We had
gone from Peterson to Prime Media to Source Interlink to the Enthusiast Network. So I think at this point we were Enthusiast Network. But the decision was made to shut 5.0 down, because that's the thing, and it's business, of course. But you have 4 Mustang titles. 2 early model and then 2 late model. So with 5.0 and Muscle being in the same space, we're going to condense. And sadly, my team and people that I worked with, or were dispatched, but I was spared, if you will, and moved into Muscle. So what was weird was you have me being a rival to this title for 10 years.
Now you're there.
Now I'm there.
Yeah.
Which was really kind of an awkward deal. But hey, make it work, because self-preservation, you have to have the job. So that went on for a little bit, but Sean Holman, who
Yep.
I give him credit for having some type of vision, you know what I mean?
Yes.
He was in a position where the editor of Diesel Power had stepped away, and there was an opening.
David Kennedy.
I don't think it was David. David had gone on
Hot Rod.
He went
to Hot Rod, yeah.
And Mike McLaughlin, I think, was the editor at that point. He was kind of like a swing editor. And I think Mike moved on to do something else. And Sean was holding down a couple of hats, with editor of Diesel Power. And I think he had another title he was working on. Plus, I believe he's kind of like a group director. So he was really a busy guy.
Yes.
But this is the thing about Sean, and something that I share all the time, as many times as I can, especially with young people, man. Sean and I had worked with the company almost the same amount of time, but we might have had 10 collective words between each other in that space.
Yes.
But he approached me and said, I've seen what you do, and I know that you can operate a magazine. You know the mechanics of running a magazine, et cetera. And as far as forced induction and engines and et cetera, you're very well versed in that. I need someone to be the leader of Diesel Power. And it's not a matter of not being a diesel guy.
Yeah.
You know about these things. It's just a different fuel in a sense, and the spark is gone. And it's more about understanding the lifestyle of the enthusiast too. And would you be interested in being the editor of Diesel Power? So that's how I got in the truck. I'll admit to everyone in your audience that my diesel awareness outside of servicing my truck was turn the key forward, and when the light goes out, start it up. That's how deep a diesel guy I was. I knew I needed one to tow my race car.
Yes.
And that's why we bought one.
Yeah.
But as far as the real hard tech side of it, I didn't know it going in.
That truck was a Ford.
Correct. Still is.
Yeah.
I still got that one too.
What year?
It's a 95 F350.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And it's still pulling
it'll pull this building down, Gale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my girl. That is my girl.
That's one straight truck, by the way.
Thank you.
What about the culture shock?
Oh my, whew, man. The culture shock.
Here we go.
The culture shock was major, and it was major on both sides. It's very major on my side.
Yeah.
But also for the audience, and quite candidly,
you have your audience, your followers.
My followers are the Mustang guys, and diesel followers. They still are. They're very passionate and loyal about diesel, and
Yes.
I understand that. So coming in, without question, I was Googled, and when I was Googled, Mustang.
Yeah,
And
who the hell is this guy?
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Who is this dude that's going to take over? And it's going to be terrible, and he's not going to do a good job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, they appreciated my predecessors, who were excellent, David and his team, Mike, and I get that. But I was not given a chance, by any means, based on my history. So I really had to come in swinging.
Yes.
And actually, I think you might recall this. To the audience, I swung the wrong way, but then again, I did swing the right way. My first issue, that I did as editor, the cover story was about smoke.
Yeah.
It was about the inefficiency of smoke, and is this really necessary? Is it an unnecessary just show of strength? Is it a flex that really is meaningless? And that issue went out, and that just made it worse. Because
Of course it did.
you had people that were, well, that's what we do as diesel guys.
Yeah.
That's just it,
But I got to tell you, that one thing right there, I kind of went, I got to know this guy. I got to know that we're going to the same church.
I appreciate you. Yeah, but that's just not being the diesel guy, but being the editor and knowing what the climate was at that time. I'm like, man, this is something to talk about. And I was very surprised that my predecessors hadn't talked about it. So it was really a swing, because I didn't know if Sean or maybe people in the higher structure at the company would knock it down, like, whoa, we can't.
Can't
not
go
on
there,
the cover. We can't go there. But it went out, and it had a big resonance. Some of it negative, then like yourself, and there were others that.
How did it do on the newsstand?
I think it sold really well.
Yeah,
the numbers were crazy. Yeah.
It was a good introductory move.
Yeah,
become controversial as hell
right away.
Yeah,
the numbers were crazy,
and they want to read your stuff.
That was it, and set out to just keep producing stuff that was, of a good quality, accuracy, et cetera. And I had to build myself up in that accuracy again, because, we're looking at terms that I wasn't familiar with, and I had to do a lot of research and fact check people that were contributing. You know what I mean? Diesel Power initially was something that was written for the diesel guy,
Yes.
So there was a lot of lingo and language in it that, like, okay, if I don't get it, what if somebody who just decides to pick this magazine up? What about them?
Yeah.
And to Banks, if there's somebody talking about a monster, you know what I mean? But it's a Banks monster exhaust. You know what I mean? It's let's flesh things out the way they should. And from a business standpoint, when you're dealing with companies that advertise with the magazine, et cetera, they're just due to have their company name stated versus just a part number or a part name. So just to get that message across to people contributing was kind of tough. Understand what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to take any message or information away. I'm just trying to polish it up a little bit so that anybody could read it. And over time, I've had compliments and comments that that's what's happened. One dude put it perfectly. He's like, Diesel Power used to be a magazine that, it stayed out in the garage, but now you can bring it in and put it on the coffee table. So I'm like, all right, that sounds complimentary. I'll take it.
This is one of those things. You don't know this. I'm sure you don't know this. But when the title started, I was one of the writers.
Wow. I'll have to find one of those articles.
I can't remember how many issues I did that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's somewhere in a box.
So we share that.
Somewhere in a box I have, not every, but close to every issue of Diesel Power. So I'll go through it one day and find you.
Yeah. It's probably pretty terrible.
But that was the deal. And now, sadly, we're in a different room now with content, no magazines and articles.
Yes.
So that's what it's come to.
So tell me about that different room. What are we in?
We're in a digital age.
We're
in a digital age pretty much 100% from our company standpoint, and then from a lot of other publications where I'm sure you've seen with me traveling so much, always checking out Hudson News or a newsstand, basically, where I've
See if
seen it's just reduction.
Yes.
There's just not the print that was there that was dominant for such a long time. So the room is digital,
right,
and producing content, reports, stories that are they're mixed bag. You have quick hitting type of stuff because, and respectfully to the audience and everybody, but the internet mind can be very fickle sometimes. You know what I mean? There's just a short attention span on a lot of this stuff, and I'm guilty of it as well.
Well, there's two I found. You write tight for the short attention span.
Correct.
Try to pack it. 800 words? I don't know.
That's it. 800 words and throw
I hit
photos
the number.
at it.
I'll be damned.
800, 850, no more than 1,000, and give it images, and people will stay with
you're
it.
done.
Yeah.
Then there's the guys who want deep knowledge.
Yes. So there's your balance, and what we're doing now with the truck side of our group, and truck and the off-road side, but basically our group is broken down now to covering both of those segments. We have the deep dive tech and install articles and that type of thing. I mean, we recently did the stuff with the Banks package. We did the diff cover and exhaust and the pedal monster and an iDash, which was really great. Actually, a couple of months ago we did that.
Yeah.
But
Thank
no
you,
worries. Thank you. Thank you. But that's content, you know what I mean? That's stuff for me to do. But we're doing stuff like that, and then we are also doing that small package, to use the industry term, snackable type of content as well. So we're feeding the machine off-road and in truck. In truck, we just call it truck because it's legacy truck trend, and it's on-road type vehicles. 8-lug is incorporated here and there. It's really more so traditional truck trend with late model or in-market trucks. And because of my history with diesel, we try to keep a diesel focus as well, and I've become the continuance of diesel power through the truck trend side of our website.
Okay, that's where it's at then.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's where it's at.
We're kind of up to date here. Diesel is alive and well in the United States, in my opinion. Mary Barra said the other day, she's chairman of the board and the CEO of General Motors. She holds both positions, and the board doesn't want to split them up, at least not currently. She's talking a lot about electric and GM building electric vehicles, but she's also talking about they cannot build the big pickups quick enough.
Heavy duty. Yeah.
Cannot build them quick enough. Also, they're going through a thing to reduce microprocessors in a GM truck by 95%.
So
that's an astounding
how
number.
Will it run?
I think you might have to, you have body computers and you have trans management and you have engine management, et cetera, maybe a single controller for everything.
Wow.
Would be one way to integrate it. They still use canned messages to operate things remote or read data or whatever. You still have that traffic. But the thing she hasn't said, and this is the thing that really kind of pisses me off, and that is all the manufacturers in the United States and foreign manufacturers that want to sell in the United States, Volkswagen being the most obvious, are going straight up electric, which is a future technology, but you can't do it overnight.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And they're talking about putting charging stations in Wyoming, Montana. They want them every 50 miles. And it's like Wyoming and Montana, Idaho, they're all going, we don't have gas stations every 50 miles. If we don't have power poles out there, it's just not working for us. And battery technology, there's a whole lot there. And I don't want to step on this by talking about it too much, but the bridge technology is not straight up electric. It's straight up electric with an engine to charge it. And you can do it different ways. It's called hybrid.
Hybrid. I agree.
What the hell happened to all the hybrid?
It just got passed by. You know, Priuses came out, and then, you know, Priuses weren't understood. Again, going to the diesel space, Priuses were hated on by diesel folks, you know what I mean? Because it was just that change and taking away from the fueling, et cetera, that people were upset about. But yeah, you're right. You know, there's been this call for electric by 2035, blah, 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 blah. But the problem is, and one of the things that's challenging for me is because, you know, I have my position as a consumer, and I also have a professional position, and, you know, sometimes those collide based on what I see happening in the industry.
Yes.
You know, but it's one of those deals where, to your point, the support probably won't be anywhere intact by 2035. Not 100%. Probably not even then. Not even 50%. You know what I mean? It's just such a big, vast United States that we have alone, and a big, vast world that we have, to say that all of this fossil fueling is going to be done with. You know, we won't tolerate it. And one of the things that I also feel about this is that at the end of the day, you have to follow the money. You know what I mean? The simple.
I know exactly what you mean.
The simple economics of it, and what doing away with fuels will do to commerce and to, you know, industry, et cetera. It just doesn't balance at all.
Doing away with oil. The plastic bottle of water I got right here is made from oil. There's so much. Something I'm wearing, the fabric's made from oil. It's just, you can't do away with oil.
No.
So in trying to strangle oil production so people will buy electric cars that can't be easily charged outside of your home.
Right.
I'm working on a podcast, probably a video in my Speed School series, which is in its infancy, where we talk about the cost of pushing the same heavy-duty GM or Ford or Ram truck down the road. It uses the same road horsepower or road kilowatt hour. It consumes the same amount of energy. Well, which energy is cheaper? They lie about the cost of electricity, call it 14 cents per kilowatt hour. The reality, I've been looking at my electric bills at home. Ain't no way.
If you have a pool right now.
And they talk about in a rapid charger in Redondo Beach, you know, one of those Tesla rapid chargers, from 11 in the morning till 9 at night, kind of these prime hours, it's 58 cents a kilowatt hour. A kilowatt hour of diesel fuel is less expensive, not more expensive.
There you go.
It's time to speak truth to power.
I agree.
And that's what I'm going to do. I just stepped on your deal here.
No, that's all right.
But you tell me about Magna.
Oh man, see,
because
this
leads
thing.
us right in.
You set it up. That's the thing. I have you know, my enthusiast and civilian side, but then professionally, I've been working with or following some of the things or everything that Magna International has been doing. They're out in Michigan, and as far as the heavy duty platform, they've got it figured out as far as a really solid, in my opinion, hardware. Yeah. They've developed something called the E-beam, which is basically
a beam axle.
A beam axle that in that the motor, etc., is packaged in that axle.
Yes.
And then they also have a smaller motor device that goes up front, so thus your all-wheel drive or full-time controllable all-wheel drive. You can almost move power to any point on the truck, which is really pretty neat.
And your wheel speed can vary front to back.
Absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to drive their product, and I think that could be successful, but then again, you have to think about success based on the other elephant in the room, and wild card is battery.
Yes.
You know, when you're thinking about a heavy-duty truck and the use of a heavy-duty truck, weight usurps energy. It's what
the
happens.
energy density of a gallon of diesel is supreme. 231 cubic inches of battery. You know, a gallon is 231 cubic inches. 231 cubic inches of battery is not remotely close. You got to carry a hell of a lot of battery.
That's just it. So hell of a lot of battery in a 2500,
it's a work truck.
a work truck.
Yeah.
But factors such as heat, elements, cold, etc. All these things are coming into play on that battery. And again, you bring weight into it. It's like, well, how long? Bottom line is, how long will it last? For the consumer who goes out and spends their money on this truck because it's the future, it's the thing I need to have. But then they come to find out that its usage is, for lack of a better term, a pain in the ass.
Yes. Well, I call it the 5-minute rule. With an automobile running gasoline or diesel, 16, 18, 20-gallon tank, you can fuel that in 5 minutes. With a pickup truck, it might be 7 or 8 minutes. Well, what does it take to fuel these battery-powered setups? They talk about the range. That's from 10% charge to 90%. In other words, you never fully charge the battery, and you never fully discharge the battery. So when they give you a kilowatt-hour capacity of the battery, it's from 0 to 100%. But you only use 80% of that. Let's start with that. And how long does it take to charge it? Well, with the rapid charge setup that Tesla has, you can get from like 10 to 80% in 20 or 30 minutes. And that gives you a partial range. You might get 120, 130 miles, but you're not going to get 300 miles out of that charge. Cold weather, did you go back to test that Magna setup in the snow? In the
snow and in the frigid cold of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Oh, that's a wondrous place to be. Frank Stronach, who owns Magna, he and his daughter kind of run that company, and they are a magnificent company.
It is really.
Yeah, because remember they make frames for the GM trucks, or at least they did. He also owns Santa Anita horse race facility out here, a storied and legendary place in Arcadia. This guy's something else, and I've done business with him in various ways in the past, so I truly appreciate who they are. What might not have been said while you were back there freezing your tail off is the battery. Now, instead of having 100% of your range, you got maybe 50% of your range. Charging and discharging of the battery pack is compromised in cold weather. It's also compromised in hot weather.
Yes, sir.
The temperature in this room, let's say it's about 72 degrees. That's optimum. So the battery is optimum at 72 degrees. Above that or below that, maybe I'm being too exacting, but low 70s. Above or below that temperature, they charge slower and they discharge slower. The heat, in hot weather, part of the battery capacity is used to refrigerate the batteries. Nobody talks about that. Mm-hmm. In cold weather, part of the battery capacity is used to warm the batteries. That's where the energy comes from on the vehicle. Well, if you're warming the batteries, and mind you, that includes when the vehicle is parked and shut off. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're still heating the battery.
Yes, sir.
It's like...
It's a vicious cycle.
Well, I'm speaking truth to power. It's coming. Anyhow.
It's a vicious cycle. And again, what I've seen and what they're doing is from an engineering standpoint is really brilliant. It's cool to see that someone is thinking about the heavy duty segment, because you would think and hope that Big Three are doing that, but they're not talking about it. They're talking about 150 Lightnings and Silverados, right, and the Rivian and the 1500 space.
Sure.
But as you said earlier, consumers want the heavy duty truck. Mm-hmm. So if this is all going to go in that direction, someone needs to figure it out. And again, Magna has it figured out.
Yes. From
a hardware standpoint, but all the supporting players that are coming from somewhere else, they have to be equally figured out.
Well, if I'm Magna, I'm trying to sell my E-Beam, is that the
E-Beam? Yes, sir.
To
Intelligent Force is what the whole package
well,
is.
I'm selling to the big three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've set it up with one of the big three's rigs, and I think it's to show off that with a couple of changes here or there based on axle length, this can go up under any one of the big three, with a slight modification. So
yes,
if it would, as
Track
they say,
width.
behoove the big three to really take notice of it and say, let's go this way. If we're really trying to be 100 about this,
and it can still be a hybrid.
Sure,
it's what they call a series hybrid. In other words, the engine turns the generator and
that's
charges the battery.
the Toyota right now. The new Tundra is in that.
Absolutely. Now the Tundra is not a series hybrid. It's a parallel hybrid.
Parallel, yes.
And the engine powers the wheels. And you have a motor generator unit right behind the engine before the torque converter. Toyota's done it and done it right. They really have. It's a really good setup. I can't go too deeply, but we've been doing serious hybrid engine development for tracked Army vehicles for a couple of years now, maybe 3. Now we're doing a parallel, smaller diesel, a diesel you would recognize, a V6 motor generator unit. We can declutch the engine so it can run pure electric, or we clutch the engine in so it can run pure engine, or a combination of the two. It's everything an electric vehicle is, but you can run it on the engine too. So that's my favorite hybrid configuration.
Yeah.
And when Toyota did the Tundra, I kind of went, well, that kind of is a validation right there. Because those cats,
Yeah.
I don't underestimate Toyota for 1 millisecond. They are damn good at what they do. And of course, the Prius is theirs too.
Yeah. Started it all domestically, for sure.
Yeah. So that truck, I will own one. It's not a diesel, but something about Toyota I want to add. About a year ago, I read a new patent from Toyota, because I watch patent flow that regards diesel. They have a new fuel injector configuration that greatly diminishes soot output, requires less aftertreatment, improves the combustion process with an on-center injector, which is traditional. But by supplying air along with the fuel, in other words, there's a little air injection too that didn't come through the intake valves. Yeah. What the hell are they doing patenting diesel when
injector.
everybody says diesel ain't going to be there anymore?
Follow the money, Gale. I told you.
I'm telling you right now.
Follow the money.
Yeah. So in my dreams, Toyota does a diesel parallel hybrid with its new injection technology.
Home run.
Home run.
Home run.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My God. I got to own that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Before we end this podcast, tell me about Justin Ziegler's Cummins.
Man, that's a where do you start? But
Did he build the engine himself?
The engine was built by D&J Precision Machine. It's a big diesel engine shop in Ohio. I believe, I don't want to misname the engine, but they name their engines like Enforcer and Predator or whatever.
Yeah.
They have names, and it might be an Enforcer. I'm not certain. Maybe it's not. It's not a billet block. It's a cast block engine.
It's a Cummins.
It's a Cummins. It has...
Would it be the CGI block, the late 6.7 block?
I don't want to.
I hope it is.
I don't know
it should be the
those
strongest
specifics.
block.
Probably is.
Yeah.
Probably is.
Yeah.
But D&J built basically a monster for Justin's truck, and the truck is actually Levon Miller. It's his former Ultimate Call-Out Challenge truck. So that truck was proven in that it has won UCC twice.
Yes.
And Justin purchased it and kind of went through it. They changed some things, redid some things, and then put this monster in there with all intentions of performing phenomenally on the dyno.
Yes.
UCC is an all-encompassing competition. It is basically a professional, if you will, diesel power challenge.
Yes.
Where the three major segments of diesel motorsports are dyno, drag race, and sled pull.
Mm-hmm.
And UCC puts the competitors through those tests, and dyno has always been the popular, the crowd favorite.
Yes.
You don't know what's going to happen, go or blow, whatever,
Yeah.
And in the dyno space, over the last 2 years, we could say, 3,000 horsepower has been this new threshold.
It's like the price of admission.
Yeah. It really is. The price of admission, or the threshold that the big guns are trying to get to. So they created this truck for Justin, and he was the defending UCC champion. He won it last year as well with another truck.
Yes.
But he wanted to come back, and given all of the hype about 3,000 horsepower, honestly, Justin wasn't really in the conversation. There were two other players who the internet was really going back and forth about who would do it first at Ultimate Call Out Challenge, and Justin wasn't discussed, but he showed a video of his truck prior to Ultimate Call Out Challenge on the Firepunk diesel dyno,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, Gale, looking at this video, it frightened me because it was just a rip, and the truck wanted to come off the dyno. And the years that I've been watching diesels on dynos and the strapping down and knowing what's involved just through Diesel Power Challenge and knowing how secure they have to be because of what they can do, this truck didn't care about any of that.
It wanted to drive away.
It wanted to drive away.
Yeah.
I said, wow, that's pretty stout. So when his dramatic, the two players that were supposed to make 3,000 horsepower at Ultimate Call Out Challenge didn't do it. They did okay, but they didn't make the 3,000. Mm-hmm. So Justin, being the defending champion, last on the dyno, it didn't take him long. I mean, his rip is viral for anybody watching the internet. They can go look it up.
Yes.
And this one, it wanted to come off the dyno once again. And 3,336 horsepower at the rear tires.
Yeah,
it was phenomenal to see. Phenomenal.
So, did he win?
He did win. He repeat champion. He won Ultimate Call Out Challenge for the second year in a row.
Yeah.
I'm kind of proud of him, and I'm proud of a lot of the competitors that participate in UCC over the years, because so many of them are Diesel Power Challenge alumni. And I feel that kind of manifests what we were doing from an amateur standpoint to build those guys and get them ready to go to that next level and compete for UCC titles and stuff. And one of those deals where, I mean, not to say participation trophies or anything, but I feel that being on that stage is, it's impressive. Even if you don't win, it's really cool that you can be among what the space and what the enthusiast base considers the upper echelon of diesel performance. That's really pretty cool. And Kennedy and Mike and myself, through DPC and all of our staffs, we've helped that come together.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, God. Were you there?
I was there. I was there, and
that's
I don't know. I asked our social media guy. I had video, and I posted it on my social spaces, and as far as watching numbers, and I don't really do that, but I had never seen any of my posts be like thousands of looks and views and this, that, and the other. So I asked our social guy about that, and he says, yeah, for a personal account, that's pretty good.
That's insane. So you recently, this kind of takes you back to gasoline, but you recently wrote a story about a Cherry 91 GMC Syclone.
Yes. Yeah, it was auctioned. Was it auctioned? Did Mecum Tulsa happen?
16,000 miles on it.
Yes. I know the truck. I'm just trying to remember whether or not the auction happened or not. But it was for the Tulsa Mecum auction. It might have gone off already. But
I'd love to know what it sold for.
Yeah, I need to look that up. We've been Motor Trend is in a partnership with Mecum Auctions, and basically on our side, the truck side, our group, we're taking some of the trucks that are in these lots and doing a little preview features on them, little mini features, and then following up. So I do need to follow up on how it did, but following up on, did it sell for the money that we think it might, or the money that society might think it might? You know, you look at your Craigslist or Hemmings or something, and what is a 16,000-mile Syclone going for? And then take a look at what it sold for at Mecum. To give you an example of how ridiculous things can be, there was a story that I did about an F-250, I believe it was like a 79 F-250, that had a Cummins in it. It was a Cummins swap. It had a 12-valve in it. No. It was Common Rail. I think it was Common Rail. Anyway, it had a Cummins. It was a Fummins. It was a Fummins. It sold for $200,000. Like, wait a minute.
Somebody really wanted that.
Well, somebody really wanted it, and I watched that bid happen. It was two guys, and they just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until somebody finally buckled. But to the tune of $200,000, then you have a 16,000-mile Syclone, okay?
Yeah.
That, you know, pound for pound, which way would you go? Cyclone all day, right?
Well, yeah.
But comparably, it's somebody got it for a steal because they didn't pay $200,000, I'm sure. So,
that's probably true,
So, it's weird how that auction stuff can happen, but it's been kind of fun to follow it on the truck side, and there's plenty of muscle cars and all that kind of stuff. I went to the Houston auction, and it was the first time I've ever seen anything like that in person. They've been around for a long time and watch them on TV, but to be on the floor and have the access that I had through Mecum and our arrangement, it was a mind blower. So I plan on going back to another one and seeing what's happening. But I'll follow up on that Syclone because it was cherry.
Text me.
It was cherry.
Let me know.
Yes, sir.
You know our backstory with the Syclone.
Yes, I do.
We ran the Bonneville effort 2 years in a row. It was not called the Syclone the first year. It was a Sonoma S15, whatever you want to call it. And the second year, the marketing guy at GMC, Rick Lee, said, "We're going to name the truck. I've come up with a name." And I'm going, "Okay, we're going to name it Syclone." I said, "Rick, that's a Ford. That was a Mercury Syclone. That's a Ford trademark." He said, "Well, we'll spell it with an S." I went, "That really doesn't cut it. Trademark law, if it sounds like it, it doesn't matter how you spell it." He says, well, then screw them. It's just like that. I went, "Man, you're a daring cat." Ford probably never kept up that trademark because they never had another Syclone.
Right.
And you got to use it or you lose it in terms of trademarks. Kind of an interesting backstory. The Syclone, that Rick Lee would not let it be turbocharged.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
When John Rock kind of was the one, he was running GMC, approached me about doing this whole thing. And we came up with a half-ton short bed with a big block.
Oh, no.
Yeah. This
really?
was be like 1988. We were working on this, and I think we ran at Bonneville first time in 89.
That was a predecessor to what became the Silverado, the SS454.
Yeah, the SS. We had styling drawings of the truck, had a wing on the back, had engine room drawings, injected twin turbo, big block, 502-incher.
Yeah.
And they used to, each division kind of on their own, but the truck thing, Chevy and GMC, I was in a mutual meeting where this was discussed, and Bob Robe did a lot of the drawings. And David Stollery, a stylist at Art Center, did a lot of the drawings for us. We had this whole portfolio. We lay it out, and the guys from Chevy go, "Ooh, that's cool." If anybody does a big block short bed half-ton, it'll be Chevrolet. You guys only have 17% of the GM truck market. We have 83%. We're the guns. We're taking it. So all I got left is the drawings. We do this Syclone thing. It gets named the Syclone. Rick Lee wouldn't let me turbo the race trucks because they didn't have a turbo truck for sale at GMC. And then it's decided to make a street version. And it had to be turboed because their 4.3-liter V6 was kind of a pig. But once turboed, it was a serious setup. Then it was tail happy because there's no weight on the tail, so all-wheel drive to get grip.
Yeah.
That thing was 0 to 60, the prototype was 0 to 60 in the rain, identically in the dry. Wow. It was like within a quarter of a second.
Yeah, it's a bad dude.
It was bitching, you know?
Yeah.
And most importantly, it blew away SS.
Oh, the big truck, sure. Yeah, that's what I noted that in the story that, you know, on the pound for pound, while the power is almost comparable from that little engine to, you know, the big block. The power is just a tick behind it, but as you said, it blew it away, and that's your power to weight, you know, working right there.
What's really interesting, we did a small engine version of it, 183 cubic inch version of that thing, you know, which is basically a 3-liter. Took it to Speed Week. There was a young guy hanging out.
Hennessy.
Lingenfelter. So young John Lingenfelter was hanging on one of our easy up posts, just watching us work on that truck. We set a record for that engine size at Bonneville at the Nationals. And I looked in the rule book the other day, the new one. We still hold that record.
Wow.
This is like how many decades later. Nobody has gone that fast. So that was with the little engine. Kind of cool in all respects, and kind of gives us both a little shot as we end the podcast today. This is an appropriate place to wrap this podcast because we were sharing something here. I want to know about the sale price on that sucker at Mecum. I really do. I never got one because I'm too big for them.
I was wondering, like, well, why don't we have one?
Leno bought one. Him and Mavis went out to buy a Christmas tree one year. They were just out, so early 90s. And he wanted a big Christmas tree, and whatever he drove to the lot wouldn't carry the tree. Right across the street was a GMC dealership with a Syclone in the window. So he goes over there, he buys a Syclone to take his Christmas tree home. A normal Leno story right there.
Wow.
Yeah, and talk about low mileage.
I was going to say.
That thing is in his collection.
Oh, my.
You know, it's there. And I got in it once and I went,
not going to work. Huh?
No.
Goodness.
No. Unless I would cut off about 6 inches of my legs. So I just, you know, KJ, you and I have so many touch points, so many similar experiences. I want to talk more about EV evolution.
Anytime, man.
In large pickup trucks, HD pickups.
Well,
this is going to be an interesting ride.
I'm following it, trying to stay abreast of it. And again, you know, I have to look at my livelihood, you know, in trucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have to have some awareness of what's happening. So as I learn, I'm going to share with, of course, our audience, and I'll share with you. And, you know, we're 1-to-1, dude. So anytime.
We really want to run a diesel hybrid, a parallel setup at Pikes Peak in our road race GMC. We did a road race truck with GMC 05, 06.
Oh, I'm aware. I remember the 2 trucks you did, a road race truck, and then one went down the drag strip, and then there's the dragster. There's a bunch of...
Well, that was a Chevy, the dragster.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that... Actually, I've always kind of wanted to take that S10 down the track. Just saying.
Well, you know, we know a lot more now than we knew then.
Yeah.
But super turbo is a big deal to me. We've done a lot of them. Goes way back to 2 I did for the Navy, super turbo D-Max-based marine engines. But I want to run a super turbo hybrid at Pikes Peak.
Wow.
Yeah, in that chassis, it's a beautiful truck.
Yeah.
Damn good looking truck. Very good road racer, but we killed transmissions. So we're doing a transaxle. We're going to do the Corvette transaxle setup. I'm working on the gear ratios, and it's a 6XD, which is very serious, small racing transmission company, builds these things. So I'm really excited about it. Paul Dollenbach is going to drive it.
Of the Wally Dallenbach heritage?
One of Wally's boys.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's, in my estimation, one of the best on the mountain.
Right on.
And we're good, dear friends. We've done it before twice.
That's cool.
Yeah. But this time it's diesel hybrid.
Okay.
So it'll be...
It'd be something to watch, something
Yeah.
to look out for. I'm good with it.
And as we do more diesel hybrid, I'll be talking to you.
Okay.
I can't show what I'm doing for the Army right now,
I understand.
but I can do my own thing on my own dollar and show you that.
I'm
Yeah.
here, man.
All right.
here.
All right. Thank you. It's been way too long.
Yes, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. I appreciate you, Gale.
Thank you
There
for
are a bunch
coming
of people
over.
listening to this that appreciate you also. So
Well, thank you.
thanks for your time and giving me this opportunity. It's been great. I'll come back anytime.
Well, great time.
Yes, sir.
And guys, I'm going to get to your questions in the next episode. You're blowing up my inbox. I think we went a little long here. So it's a wrap. See you next time.
Be sure to subscribe for more episodes of Speed School with Gale Banks.
You went back on the freeway and
Picked
picked all
up the
this
parts.
stuff? Like, no, I don't think so.
No.